Hello, good morning, and welcome to Ensemble Conversations with me, Mark Kilmurry. This morning we're talking to the wonderful and legendary Ursula Yovich. Hello, Ursula, are you there?
Hello, I'm, I'm here.
How are you going? You're moving
Sorry.
around. How are things? How has this year been for you with the I guess with coming out of isolation now is very good the last few months, but how has it been for you, particularly for this year?
Um, it hasn't been too bad in the sense of having time off, I guess, and knowing that the rest of the world was in the same kind of situation as you. So I kind of welcomed having that time to sit down, and I spent a lot of like self-reflection during that period, especially earlier on when we first went into lockdown. I think it was the first time that I got to kind of lay up on my couch and watch endless Netflix until I got completely bored and couldn't do it anymore. I enjoyed it.
I think there's been some great positives coming out. I mean, nobody wants to go through a pandemic, but the same for me, spending more time with the family, being at home in the evening, that I'm not going to see theatre, though much as I love theatre, but then, like you, watching television and spending time in your home environment has been really interesting.
Yes. Um, and cooking.
Yes.
Like spending the time cooking and yeah, and being with, my daughter who's now sick of me being around, preteen, just about to go into high school. Yeah, it was really lovely. I mean, I'm now hungry to get back into, yeah, work. Um, so I'm really looking forward to the end of this year, and yeah, 2021 would be
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Absolutely. Yes, I have a 12-year-old too, and he's just going into high school, so he's sometimes a little bit over his old dad. Um, sighs a lot. Dad. Oh, goodness. I'm interested, actually, just in your NIDA lecture. Congratulations on that. It was wonderful. Anybody who wants to see that should look at the NIDA website because it's such a beautiful lecture that you gave and the Q&A afterwards. You mentioned about growing up with television. So my working class background was much more about my drama and entertainment came from being glued to the television set. And that was something that I just loved rather than theatre. Theatre was much, much later because that wasn't really available to me. But you mentioned a few shows that you particularly loved.
Um, yeah, look, I agree. I was definitely a television person as a kid. I mean, I was obsessed with it, like crazy obsessed. Wouldn't wake up early to get to school, but I'd wake up on a weekend super early just to watch Rage. Um, and yeah, and I mean, theatre didn't come in until I was at least in high school. And my first production actually I saw was, uh, ah, I can see it in my head now. I could see it in my mind. It was a Louis Nowra
All right.
play.
Yeah.
Oh, this is terrible. I
And you
can't
saw
remember.
you saw it with the school, did
In
you?
the, I saw it with the school at Brown Smart Theatre,
Yep.
and I remember thinking, oh, I'd never experienced anything like that before. It was the first time I'd seen theatre.
Mm.
First time I kind of went, oh, I didn't know that this was something that you could do.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it immensely. It'll come to me. I think I'll probably say it at the end of this
Yeah.
interview. I'll go, oh, it was play. Um, but yeah,
It was.
that love didn't come until much later.
But for you, singing was a passion too. I guess because you sing fantastic voice. But was the singing something in your childhood that you did a lot of?
Yes, I did. I mean, I didn't do lessons until I started high school,
Mm.
but my father said that I would spend hours in the room singing, and I didn't believe it. But now my daughter does the same. Like she will put music on,
Right.
and yeah, I'll just hear her singing at the top of her lungs, and it'll just go for ages, for hours. And I did that after school every day. I'd come home, and I'd put the radio on, or I'd put a cassette on.
Cassette, yes.
A cassette. And earlier I had my mother's vinyl LPs, so I would listen to her stuff as well.
Yeah, great. The good old vinyl. You can't beat vinyl. I'm collecting it again. How was that growing up? You were singing, and the passion for singing. How did then that become something that developed into to acting? Because that's quite a transition from singing along to records and having lessons to then actually going into the entertainment business.
Yes, I think I was pretty lucky, and I thank my lucky stars, because I was in the right place at the right time. So first time I realized that I could possibly do something like that was when I woke up one morning and I was watching Rage, and I saw Whitney Houston singing The Greatest Love of All, and I went, oh, I can do that. And because I was always singing.
Yes.
But then there was no avenues for that in Darwin that I knew of growing up, until I think I might have been 15 or 16. I joined the Corrugated Iron Youth Theatre.
Right.
I used to whinge to my dad after I'd finished all my chores and homework. I'd whinge and say I was bored. And so he got me into classes at school once a week with this wonderful lady, Nancy, down the road from us in the Cara. And then, he found this kind of article in the Darwin newspaper about not Brownsmart, the Corrugated Iron Youth Theatre, looking for, young people to come and, be part of the production that they were doing. And that was, it was an Eva Johnson play, and it was myself with a few other Aboriginal kids, and I initially didn't get in. Right. Some other girl had the role, but I just wanted to be around it, and was helping with the painting of the set. And then one of the girls pulled out, and so I took over the role. And and then I was fortunate enough to audition for ACPA with Michael Leslie School in Perth at the time. And I just kind of never did the singing until I was much older. But I was very shy, so incredibly shy when it came to the singing. Right. Because it felt quite vulnerable and exposing, myself, in that sense that I would shake physically as well as vocally. So I think, my career was meant to go in that direction of, learning how to be confident on stage, but being able to hide behind, a character in a sense.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and your upbringing is very interesting. Bride woman growing up in Darwin, but with Serbia too. It's a fascinating combination too of those and you were talking particularly in your lecture about the language that you were using at home. Can you just explain a little bit about that too?
Yes. Well, my father was very much about us learning English because, as an immigrant, he had difficulties. He learned English when he came over here. And so it was, he's like, this is the main language of this country is English. So it's important that you're able to communicate. But my mother spoke English and Brada, which is a language up in northwest Arnhem Land. And Brada was one of the languages that we spoke at home as children. I actually did ESL, English as a second language, when I was in primary school. Right. It was, look, the language is beautiful. Like when I hear songs from back there, Let a Stick Band or Wild Water, it's so melodic. There's just something about the language that I just love it. I wish I still maintained that language, but once my mother left, it was hard because to maintain a language, you need to be able to speak it with somebody. And I just had my brothers and, sister. So we didn't, after a while, we just stopped speaking it. But for many years after, I could understand and still do understand a little bit of what's being said when I'm listening to conversations, but I'm not really good at kind of keeping up with it.
Yes. Is it something that you might develop as well again and study in the future?
Look, I don't think it's ever too late to try for something like that. I think with Brada it would probably come back to me quite easily because I was immersed in it as a child. I mean, I remember very vague memories. They're very vague memories, but I've held on to these. But even like ceremony, where I remember dancing with the women in the community, and I remember some of those dances and go, I'm sure that stuff would come back to me quite easily if I would need to really dedicate my time and probably move up there for a few years. But it would probably come back.
Yeah,
Serbian, though, on the other hand, is so difficult. I went back there a few years ago with my dad to Bosnia, and we stayed with his family, and none of the family spoke English except for my cousins, and it was just so difficult. I would get headaches by the end of the day because I thought, if I just focus and listen, I'm sure I'm going to kind of get a grasp of something, like some kind of familiar sound. And did not work for me. It's such a hard language, apparently. So I would still like to know a little bit more. I just know simple stuff like greetings and, that just simple.
Yeah, I thought when I went to Germany on tour, I thought, oh, well, I'll learn German. So I got a BBC Learn German cassette tape and studied that for months. And all I could say when I got there was hello, goodbye, and how to order 2 beers, I think it was. And the rest of it just went out of my head. It was just ridiculous. But I guess, like you say, the more you immerse yourself with the language, the easier it becomes, and especially younger people. My son's studying French, and it's amazing what he's picking up really quickly. But I was too far gone by the time I was trying to learn German, I think. But
it just becomes harder. I remember having a moment with my father where I was trying to say a word, and in there's ch, j, and there's another word with another sound that I couldn't get because I kept going, ch, ch, and he's going, no, and he would repeat it, and I'm like looking so closely at his mouth and trying to just...
Can't get it. No. And also, if you get something wrong, it can mean something completely different sometimes in some situations. So you have to be a bit careful there, don't you, sometimes? Ursula, was there a moment when you're acting and singing, is there a moment when you thought, actually, I can do this. I want to do this as a living.
I think partway through my first theatre production, like I say, it was the Governor's Family at Belvoir Street Theatre back in 1997.
Right.
I did that one, but I also did something a bit earlier for the Sydney Festival, and it was at NIDA, and it was called Nathaniel Storm. It was a musical, and that was in 96. I came over to just kind of check Sydney out, and kind of around 96, 97, I started thinking, oh, I can actually do this as a living, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't. I don't know if it was a definite until much later, though. Like, it was just a gradual love of theatre that I now, even though I'm not on stage anymore, I don't think I'm ever going to be far away from it because it is an actual true love now. Yes. I've learned to love it, and I enjoy seeing shows. And I'm going to be taking much more time to be able to go and see theatre productions, because for a while there I was just so busy I couldn't see anything. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And recently, the last few years, you've been performing and having written plays with yourself, with Barbara, and the wonderful Barbara and Camp Dogs, A Man with the Iron Neck. Lots of passion and emotion in the parts, as well as having a hand in creating it. That must have been very challenging and exhausting in the end too.
Absolutely. I remember thinking, and I was saying to Alana, because Alana co-wrote Barbara and the Camp Dogs, I was just like, I just want to really challenge myself as an actor, because there were times when I felt like I wasn't really able to kind of build on my craft.
Right.
And so, yeah, when we wrote Barbara, it was definitely a challenge. And I remember going, well, I've got nobody else to blame but myself with my items. I got so exhausted.
Yeah.
After it. But yeah, it was wonderful to do, and it was one of those things that was quite cathartic at the time. And you know, we did it another season, and I thought, okay, I can't possibly do this anymore. And you know, I'm still relatively young. I thought it'd be nice to kind of, you know, have another thing to kind of focus on that wasn't just acting. So, you know, singing,
Yep.
Directing, writing, still being part of the arts, the theatre, but not in front of the audience.
Yes, I like the idea that I sometimes thought that when I'm doing a play, acting in a play rather than directing, think that, well, once it's opened, I'll do all those things I need to do, like I'll write that, or I'll do that, or I'll pay those bills. You don't do anything. You're so exhausted, you just sort of lie around and wait for the season to end. So it's sort of getting your life back, isn't it? Not performing.
Absolutely. I don't think people understand how much it actually takes out of you, because we are coming from an emotional state. We are constantly going to those places, and it does take it from you. I mean, I just have to think about, you know, how we are if we go to someone's funeral or someone's wedding. Everything's like heightened. So
Yes.
you just have to think of theatre performance as like one of those special occasions, but we do it every night, you know,
Yes.
bar one night. So it does actually take a lot out of you. And I always thought I had boundless energy. I mean, of course, in my 20s and 30s, absolutely. But, you know, if I want to look after myself and have a longer career, I've got to think about the future. And as much as I love acting, and I do, and I still do really miss being on stage, but yeah, I'm glad that I was able to close that door and, you know, move on. But it's exhausting. I'm glad to hear, you know, more I talk with other artists, I go, oh, it wasn't just me being a little weakling and
No, not at all.
up.
No. There's no tired like show tired, I always say, and that's the one where you're just lying on the couch watching Netflix, like you say, and you think you can't move because it's not just physically, but it mentally as well, and the two things are just hard to shake off. Once the show is finished, for me anyway, you sort of can leave it behind, but it takes a while. It takes a while to get back to being normal, as it were.
Yes, I never remember my shows. As soon as it's over, it's like something switches off in my head, and I don't remember the script, music, any of it.
No. I'm always amazed when actors can quote from plays they've done before, because, you know, I did Hamlet, or I very rarely can I quote from it. Occasional lines, but they've gone. Not much room in there.
Yeah, I'm the same.
And you've played huge roles, Ursula. I saw you do Mother Courage, which was a fantastic production. I loved that production, and Diving with Pearls and Barbara and the Camp Dogs. So they're big roles that you've been doing too, and very busy. You were very busy over those last years too. So it's probably time now to say, you know, enough's enough for a while.
Yes, absolutely. I geez, I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, they are big roles, and you do, yeah, I did get quite tired, and um, I'm looking forward to what the next few years are bringing, because I did feel like I always thought, oh, I'm just going to start slowing down with theatre, and I felt like the last few years it just kind of revved up a bit, and I
Yeah.
was working harder and doing more, and I just went, this is not right. I'm
Yeah.
getting older, and I should be kind of pulling back on that workload. But look, it is what it is, and I would never take any of it back. I've learned a lot over those last few years. I've learned how much I can push myself, and
Yes.
yeah, and the most important lesson, I guess, is going, it's time to look after yourself, like mentally and physically, and yeah, and relationship wise too, like with your family and friends. It's one of those things that I haven't been too great with, because I get so busy. I mean, theatre is my hobby as well as work.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah, just having the time for relationships has been really lovely.
And also we're talking theatre, but you've also lots of television and film. Recently, Top End Wedding, which I absolutely loved. But again, huge schedules and a beautiful role for you. But again, it was juggling that plus your theatre stuff. So you've been very busy. Now, going into the next area of directing, that's something that we're very excited about, having you along for part of the Sandra Directors Award at the Ensemble Theatre. And you've directed before on and off recently, but so that's something that is still creative and still part of what you do, but it's just sitting the other side of the desk.
Yes, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to it. I've always seen the director's role, but from the actor's perspective. So I've gone, oh, that's what they do. But I know that it's a much bigger job than that. And I'm looking forward to, being in a rehearsal room and seeing how that all works, So like with the writing, I'd had so many opportunities, like working with Playwriting Australia and,
Yes.
and, being able to work on new plays, and you get a gist and a sense of what works and what doesn't work, and how people, come together, and get an understanding of how a play is put together. So I was able to go away with Alana, and with Legs on the Wall for Man with the Iron Neck, and
Yes.
and start that writing process. So I'm looking forward to now doing that with the directing process. And I can't wait to join you guys there at Ensemble next year.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it too. It's interesting because as an actor, I sort of drifted towards directing, and I thought of myself as still being an actor. But eventually, you think, oh no, actually, I don't do that very often. I'm now a director, but it is the same process, and it's interesting, I think, how much you learn just without realizing, because of your experience on stage. You've got all that knowledge that you can bring to directing and writing. It's just there.
Yes, absolutely. It's just having those. It's having that structure, I guess. So I know got all of this knowledge, information in my head, but how do I get that out into into the practical, into the rehearsal room? And look, I know I'm in really good hands with you guys there, and we're under your guidance and all that ensemble. I feel quite confident, nervous, confident, but it's definitely mainly excitement.
Yes.
And closer it comes, the more I can't wait to actually be in that rehearsal room and sitting in. But yeah, it's like, how do we get that info? How do we get all of that knowledge and use it to So that's that's what you're going to be helping me out on.
Yes. Well, there's a nice freedom about being I always find about being in a rehearsal room, rarely I'm in another director's rehearsal room now, but there's a lovely freedom about being there and observing, because you're not the focus of attention. You're there to watch, and I quite like that freedom sometimes of just sitting at the back and seeing how the room is run and making, and how those decisions are made.
Yes.
So that's going to be fun. So in terms of the future for you, Ursula, is that, so the directing, obviously, is that something that you're going to explore more with writing?
I definitely want to explore more with writing, and obviously directing. I mean, for many years I've had so many people say, why don't you try that? And
yes.
My main concern has been that I've been too scared to go there because, I didn't feel like I was ready. But I am feeling like I could possibly do it now. But I'd love to. No, I could definitely do it. It's just, it's having, I guess, the right tutor and being in that right environment to build that confidence up as a director. I'm just looking forward to, trying out things, and, it may not be what I want to do, but I kind of doubt that. I really like the process that I like the most in the rehearsal room has always been about the discussions around plays and understanding it on a much deeper level, these characters and the story, and that's what I've always loved. Like the moment a show was open, I've always found it really hard to maintain my interest in it, and because I've always enjoyed that rehearsal process. So I think it's a definite, good step in that right direction for me is directing and writing.
Great. Well, we're thrilled to have you in the building next year, and can't wait to work with you. And I think, again, it's all part of the same creative process. So I think it's all great stuff, and you'll fit in really naturally and wonderfully. I think you'll find you're going to enjoy it very much. It's been fantastic talking to you, Ursula, and great with all the work that you've done. I hope we don't not see you performing, but I can understand the idea of just for a while maybe having a rest and doing something else. So, but we're, as I say, really, really thrilled to have you along at the Ensemble Theatre. And thank you so much for talking to us this morning as well and taking time out.
Oh, no, thank you so much. I can't wait. It's, it's wonderful.
Thank you. And hopefully when this pandemic is settled down and we're all, now it seems to be, we'll all be in a foyer soon, very soon next year, and we'll be able to say hello to you. So thank you so much again for the conversation. Great to talk to you, Ursula. See you soon.
You too. Thanks, Mark. Bye.
Bye. Yes, Yovich, so good to talk to her this morning. Thank you so much for everybody watching at home, and thank you for your emails and your feedback. Have a safe and happy festive season. Look after yourselves. I can't wait to see you back next year. Come and say hello in the foyer. Tell me what you think. See you soon. Bye.